I was afraid if I was building anything, that it could be taken from me or that Hef would be upset, because I feel like he gave us just enough to where we couldn't really leave if we wanted to. Mm-hmm. So I felt I had to build it all kind of in secret.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to New Money, where we talk to movers and shakers about how they made it. I'm your host, Rosemarie Miller, here with author and entrepreneur, Hugh Hefner. Thank you so much for joining me today, Crystal.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, Crystal, you just put out a book, Only Say Good Things, Surviving Playboy and Finding Myself. And I read that whole book.
I know, I feel so honored.
Yeah.
You're telling me you read it like all in one sitting. That's amazing.
Yes, I was locked in. I mean, it was sex, but it wasn't sexy. And,
Yes.
It was this world that a lot of women dreamed about being in, but they didn't really know what it would cost them. And that's what we're here to talk about today. What that world of being the girlfriend and ultimately the wife of Hugh Hefner cost you mentally and financially.
Yeah.
So, Crystal, what inspired you to write a book now?
After leaving the mansion, I started therapy, and I was in therapy for about 5 years. And just going through that, I realized it had more of an effect on me than I previously thought. So I thought it was time to just write about it and finally tell the truth.
Yeah. And this is your truth. I saw that all through the book. I was telling you at the beginning, it felt like a diary entry. Like I was just reading your feelings, like you felt this, like you went through something. I don't care what anybody has to say. This is your reality. You went through this. And let's go all the way back to the beginning, to your childhood, your parents. So you said that they dreamt of having like this life of fame and success and fortune. Do you feel like you kind of ultimately got that?
Wow, that's a great question. And they did. My dad was a singer. He had an incredible voice. They moved to California because, he wanted to be bigger and grow a singing career. And yeah, maybe that was a little bit ingrained in me in a like a cellular level that, okay, the goal is to make it big.
Yeah, the goal was to make it big. Yeah. But your dad passed away when you were pretty young, when you were about 12 years old. Yeah. And then you and your mom, y'all had some financial troubles. But you mentioned that you went to school and you would see, clear as day, like, okay, the haves and the have-nots. And you kind of felt like a have-not. What did that feel like? What was going through your mind at that time?
Yeah, my mom and I, at one point, we were just in one bedroom in a family's home. And you kind of feel, when you don't have much, you feel like everyone's better than you. Yeah. You feel small. People with, money, power, status are treated differently. Mm-hmm. And so I was fortunate to go and get to a really good school. But in my high school, there was this big difference. A lot of the kids' families were very rich and I wasn't. And so I got to see kind of what they had and experience it for the first time that way.
Mm-hmm. And so you didn't grow up with much. When did you learn that, okay, I got to figure something out for me? Like, it's not coming from mama. It's not coming from anybody. It has to be from me. Like, when did that really hit you, and what did you feel that you had to do about it?
I just feel that I had to make the most of my life, and my mom would always say, don't make the same mistakes I made. She had my sisters when she was very young. She said, oh, you're not having kids, you're going to go to college and make something of yourself. And so that was ingrained in me as well. I was in college studying psychology at San Diego State, and from there I got invited to come up to the Playboy mansion to a party. Mm-hmm. I got the chance to see life in excess, and Hef was rich and powerful, and you get sucked in and you want to be part of it.
Mm-hmm. When I think of that, I think of you being about 21 at that time, right?
Yeah.
You were in full-on survivor mode. Like right now you see like this golden ticket. So you did what you had to do to make it to the next day. Like you saw the path forward that you felt would bring you closer to your destiny, because you said you had these smaller modeling gigs, right? Did you think like, okay, this is my moment to really make it big?
Yeah, I did think that Playboy was, at that time, like so many women wanted to be in Playboy and wanted to be playmates. I remember seeing magazines when I was younger and thought, oh, these women are rich and powerful and have the world at their feet. And I'm like, I want to feel that way. I want to feel powerful and instead of small. And so, yeah, that was the goal. And meeting Hef was part of that.
That was part of it. And a lot of people have said, like, oh, well, she stayed all those years. Why would she now come out and write a book trying to make him look bad? What's your response to that?
I think the times have changed now.
Yeah.
I didn't know any better when I was there. This was pre-Me Too. This was before I knew certain things or had certain terms. This is before I knew what boundaries were.
Yeah.
So I'm recently just learning all that stuff.
You're recently just learning. I was thinking, actually, when I read the story, people stay at 9-to-5 jobs that they hate for 30 to 40 years. But why? Because that 9-to-5 keeps a roof over their head, keeps food on the table, and keeps money in their pocket. And at least they don't have to deal with that worry every single day. Is that kind of what you had going through your head? Like, hey, this is my life right now. I would rather be worry-free in all of those regards, all of those necessities, than have to worry every single day, like, okay, how am I going to pick my life up? People don't even want to quit their jobs because it means starting over. So why are people out here judging you for not wanting to start over and stay for X amount of years?
Yeah, I think, I don't know, I feel a lot of people are judging me, but it's just my story, and I was sucked in and drawn in, and I just, this was the complete opposite of the life I had before, and I just wanted to see what it would be like. And, Playboy's known for freedom and expression, and I thought it was a place where I could feel completely free and have lots of opportunity.
Yeah. And let's talk about the money you made during that time.
Yeah.
You made like, what, $1,000 a week, right?
Yeah, $1,000 a week when I first got to the mansion.
Yeah.
And for some reason I was a bit determined, maybe more than other people that have come through, but knowing what it was like to have absolutely nothing, I never wanted to be there again. So I just started trying to save as much as I could.
Yeah.
And even if that started with the $1,000 a week that I had to go and basically beg up for.
Yeah. And you started a lingerie company at a certain point. What did you learn about business during that brief stint?
Oh my gosh, I learned a lot. So I was fortunate enough, I had a stepdad that worked at Merrill Lynch in San Diego, and then my mom's a real estate broker. Mm-hmm. And then I remember asking my stepdad, I'm like, how much money does it take to have an account at Merrill Lynch? And he's like, $200,000. And I'm like, one day I'll get there. And so, I did have that in the back of my mind. I'm like, oh, I want to make this amount of money so that, I could have the money with my stepdad and it can grow. And I became a playmate and it was like $25,000. And I remember just like writing how much money I was making down on a piece of paper. And it was slowly growing. But then I thought, okay, I need to do more. And I did end up starting a lingerie company. Mm-hmm. I had a bikini line for a while. I learned how to DJ. And I thought, okay, even though I'm starting to feel like pretty trapped at the mansion, I'm going to try and at least be like financially free.
Yeah.
And so I, behind the scenes and in front of the scenes, I worked on that a lot.
Yeah. You're trying to be financially free. Yeah. And what are your views on financial freedom today?
I think that, having means to just do what you feel like doing and not be confined by people or a place. And it's so important. Like to me, that's the true freedom that I'm experiencing now. It's part of it, being emotionally free and financially fine.
Yeah. And you went through this moment of, okay, I'm trying to figure out what I like, what I'm good at, who I am. Do you feel like you found that person? Do you feel like you know like what your purpose is in life?
I think I'm a work in progress.
Yeah.
I remember someone asking me what I liked or what my hobbies were when I came out of the mansion. And I thought, I don't know. Like, what do I like? Like, who am I?
Yeah.
But that's taken me a while. But yeah, I love travel. I started traveling and I found like, okay, I like warmer places. I ended up in Hawaii. I love it here. So I ended up buying a farm there. And just slowly, I love nature, just slowly following my heart and inner compass and just following what I love. It's, yeah.
So we talked about the girlfriend period a little bit. Let's talk about being a wife. Did the allowance go up at all when you were a wife?
Oh my gosh. So it did go up to $2,500.
Okay.
And instead of asking Hef for it, I said, hey, like, we need to change this. Mm-hmm. Can you just direct deposit in my bank account each week? And he did. And so I was getting that from Hef, and he would allow me to turn my credit cards into the office. So things I would buy, I would get reimbursed for. And other than that, I started with social media, like ads on social media. I was making money doing that. And DJing. I would go to the Hard Rock in Las Vegas during the day and make it back for movie night. But yeah, and then I started real estate.
Yes.
I didn't want to have to think I was, going behind his back or doing anything weird. So I secretly formed an LLC and I bought my first house. And this was all while I was there, without anyone knowing.
Without anyone knowing.
Yeah.
So who did you confide in at that time?
My mom.
Your mom.
And my attorney that helped me create the LLC.
Yeah.
So all in his name if they were look anything up. I was afraid if I was building anything, that it could be taken from me or that Hef would be upset, because I feel like he gave us just enough to where we couldn't really leave if we wanted to. Mm-hmm. So I felt I had to build it all kind of in secret.
And you were a wife at this time.
Yes.
But didn't you also kind of say to him, like, all the other girlfriends, they have to go. They got to get out of this house.
Yeah, so most of them went. Most of them. Gosh, after we married, most of them went. But he still expected like a performance in the bedroom.
Okay.
So I did have a couple actual friends that I would call and be like, hey, can you come?
You said you'd rather have it that way, though. These are your words.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because I felt, okay, if this man is expecting this, he can't like be completely in love with me if he wants other people like around. And the thought of me just by myself, I'm like, oh, I'm not enough, and he needs some kind of show. So I did appreciate when I had help, for sure.
Well, he certainly did chase you down when you left.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he did. And maybe it took me leaving for him to finally be told no.
Yeah.
Or losing something or someone. I think maybe it changed him.
That's what men do. That's what I have so many men who have just spun the block. Like, after you finally leave and decide, I'm done, I'm going to heal, here they come calling.
Wow.
That's a man thing. Well, Crystal. Okay, so back to you being a wife. You've been told all the girls to go. So if you had the confidence to tell him, no more girls in the house, why didn't you feel that you could tell him that you were starting your own business, making your own money?
I don't know. I think it might have frightened him a bit.
Yeah.
I don't know if I had another house, maybe he thought I was like going to meet other guys there or something. I just didn't want him to be concerned. And so I didn't tell him. Yeah.
And he was never like physically abusive, anything like that. You weren't scared of him in that way, right?
No, not physically abusive, but definitely emotionally abusive. I mean, he was definitely narcissistic. He only wanted to talk about himself.
Yeah.
Yeah, my thoughts, feelings didn't matter. He was obviously misogynistic. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it was difficult and it's hard.
Was that like a facade? Because I meet a lot of people, they come through here with their alter ego, they're famous, they're that thing going, but that's not really who they are. I've had people say like, okay, this is me being on. This isn't the actual me. Was that Hugh Hefner just being on?
That's such a good point. And I do think that was a mask. I definitely think he was a narcissist, but I think him acting or portraying himself as the man to the whole world, I think was him overcompensating for how he really felt inside.
Yeah.
He was a young boy that never really got love from his parents. All the girls he had crushes on, went off with somebody else. So I think he experienced a lot of heartbreak. His first wife cheated on him before they got married. And so I think he just really overcompensated for that by starting Playboy to try and fill some void in his soul that I don't think ever truly got filled.
Thousands of women, if not more than thousands, and I didn't feel it. So, like, what does that say? What would you have to say to men out here who, they have this womanizing streak? They want all these women around them. Please give them some tips.
It's not the answer.
Yeah.
It's not the answer. And all the men that I've met like that, so many of them have come through the mansion. Like, they are all completely empty and completely lost souls.
Yeah.
And until they find something within themselves, it's hard for them because they're just constantly on this search for something they're never going to find externally.
Never going to find it.
So.
Oh, wow.
Reach within, for sure.
Hey, well, what tips do you have for women who are leading with their looks, leading with like trying to make it with their body, with their face? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, now my therapist tells me, whatever you do in the future, make sure it has nothing to do with what you look like. Because, I'm getting older, beauty phase. That time in my life was so hard.
Yeah.
Just using looks. I mean, sadly, like, we're a society that values like youth and beauty, and that can get you in the door, but you can't let it stop at that. And beauty is only skin deep, and really knowing who you are and having worth for what's inside, like self-worth, is very important.
Definitely, because you're saying it, beauty fades. Yeah. There has to be the inner beauty as well.
Yeah.
Well, I must ask, because this is Forbes, how much money do you feel you've made because of your beauty over the years?
Oh my gosh. Millions from
Millions.
What I look like.
Well, you look good, girl.
I've turned it into. I mean, I was lucky enough to be able to have that drive to turn it into that.
Yeah.
And I would see girls coming through the mansion and they just bought a new Range Rover or they just bought Louboutins. I'm like, oh my gosh, buy a condo. Like, Range Rovers are expensive. Like, all this stuff in your closet adds up. Like, start with a condo. And that's what I did when I was at the mansion. I bought, a modest house, and from there I ended up flipping it and buying another one and buying another one. And by the time I left the mansion, I had about 8 houses in Los Angeles. And so I'm proud of myself. Yeah. I'm proud of the money I made outside of the mansion and outside of Hef. But, that's where I started.
In real estate, what has that taught you? What have been some of the highs and lows of juggling 8 houses?
My gosh, the lows were nightmares, like thinking I'm forgetting stuff or stuff's falling apart. I woke up, I'm like, I gotta sell some things. But the highs, it helps to have my mom was in real estate. I got my real estate license when I was 18 before the mansion. The highs for me, creating something. Yeah. I lean more toward like natural spaces and natural things and lots of filters, water filter, air filter, reclaimed wood. So something creative and just feeling like I'm doing something good and I'm not having to use physical appearance for it. Just, that's the high for me.
And did the money Hugh Hefner left you, was it 5 or 7 million? I'm saying different numbers.
We bought a house that was around $5 million, and I ended up selling it for pretty much what we bought it for.
So there was the house. Did he leave you any money after?
He it was like a part of like a Playboy retirement or something like that. But by the time he passed, like Playboy, the stocks and everything were what he thought he would leave for his children and his legacy and all of that was mainly tied up in Playboy stocks, and they severely tanked, and he ended up selling the company. So
you didn't get much. And I remember you saying, even this is before his death, a lawyer was like, you can't sign this prenup.
I remember they gave me a completely ironclad prenup. I took it to an attorney.
Yeah.
They said, this is grossly unfair. We can't sign this. The language was insane, all the way down to you have no rights to use the Playboy rabbit head logo. Like, what am I trying to
Right.
But I just brought it to a different attorney that signed it.
And they signed off on it.
Yeah.
Crystal, I'm still stuck on this. When he died, you didn't really get much at all. You didn't get much.
I think compared to, what the empire he created and what people assume, like, no.
Like, are we talking less than 10 million?
Yeah, definitely. But I'm lucky that I had my own version of that as well, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that humility, by the way. Like, okay, like what normal people, because it does sound, I would be happy. I would be happy. But I understand, for this to be Hugh Hefner, you to be Hugh Hefner's wife, the man, and you get less than $10 million when he died, did you feel any kind of way?
I just felt grateful that I had built my own nest egg while I was there.
Yeah.
But yeah, and it's the same goes for his children and everything. So they went from being raised with 70 staff members to just living modest lives, but just how it works and what that entire empire was built upon has crumbled. So,
And Crystal, was it worth it?
I think about that a lot, and I think my story is a good story.
Yeah.
I'm hoping to help a lot of people with this book. I don't think I would change anything, 'cause, now I know my worth, and I don't. Yeah.
And I'm glad you said that as well, that you wrote this book, because people are like, why is she writing a book right now? Honestly, Crystal, if I had lived in the Playboy mansion for a decade and married Hugh Hefner, I'd write a book too. Okay?
And I would definitely read it.
I'd write a book. So a lot of people writing books about nothing. I would write a book too, okay?
Thank you.
So I applaud you on that. And finally, the world wants to know, why are you keeping the last name?
That is a great question, and I want to change my name back to my original name.
Really? How soon?
As soon as I figure out how to do it. And as soon as I can get a hold of Instagram and whoever else to change my handle
Okay.
as well.
Crystal Harris.
Yes.
You're going back to Crystal Harris.
Yeah.
No more Crystal Hefner.
No.
Oh. So what about your future? Any love on the horizon? Any more marriages?
I hope to get married one day. I'm finally to the point where I'm meeting and dating people that are very healthy
Yeah.
to be around, and I think that's an important part of my journey in healing. And yeah, things are good. I finally feel that I have true freedom.
True freedom. And what are you going to think about when you think of your wedding vows if you get remarried? Like, how are you going to cherish them differently this time?
Absolutely. It's something that I will soak in and know that I'm 100% exactly where I want to be.
That's what's next. Yeah. Crystal, you're amazing. Thank you so much for joining me today.